So at this stage, the class should have two boards populated with a lot of entries. The first is the know-how board and the second is the know-who board. So both R&D technologies as well as industry challenges. So the next step is for each student or to come up with a venture proposal, and it's to find a match. Now there are several ways we can do this. So the idea is to start mining both the know-who and the know-how entries, and if you find an entry, if you find a direct match, uh, and that happens in a few cases. If you find a direct match, then go ahead and list that as your venture proposal. But if you have, for example, a know-how entry, but there doesn't seem to be a matching entry in the know-who list, then you should try to identify a specific customer that you can contact within a week or less for the next phase, which is the one-day validation phase. And that contact can be from your own personal network. It could be from the network of your classmates, so they might have listed it in the know-who board, but the challenge that they may have listed in the know-who board may not be directly related to your technology, but it's in the right industry based on the profile, the know-how profile that you have listed. Okay. On the flip side, if, for example, you have an industry challenge or opportunity in the know-who board and there doesn't seem to be a direct match in our know-how list, then you can still propose that, but you need to have one of two things. So number one, you might have the technical background yourself to be able to flesh out the solution that that you are envisioning, or you might know somebody in class that can help you assess the technical feasibility of the proposed solution and maybe even do some initial design and fleshing out of the solution. So either one of those two approaches are okay, and between direct matches and what we just described as indirect matches, we should be able to generate a lot of possible opportunities and venture proposals that we can then take to the next step, which is one-day validation. So again, a couple of guidelines to help you prioritize the venture proposals. To maximize the number of opportunities, again, it's going to be first come, first serve, and we need to avoid duplication. We want to make sure that the technology is we want to prefer technologies that are at least at the lab prototype stage, so that means TRL4, TRL3, ideally TRL4 or higher. Okay, it's some technologies, some opportunities that you list might be deprioritized, and there are several reasons, and one of them is that your proposed solution might be widely available. It might be commercially available already, maybe not here in the country, but given the ease at which we can import technology, it might be easy to do that. So in those cases, you will be asked by your facilitator to identify a potential competitive advantage for your technology over the solutions or the technologies that might be commercially available in your country or abroad. Okay, so those are the key tips and guidelines for the venture proposal. And once your facilitator has greenlisted your venture proposal, then please proceed to the one-day validation. Okay. Now, one tip on doing the one-day validation, and this is a special case. Many of the ventures you propose will be what we call one-sided ventures. So, for example, if the problem is I need to do some computations on a spreadsheet, then your solution would be two things. You would need a laptop and you would need software, spreadsheeting software to do your calculations. And there are companies that sell you those solutions, and those are called one-sided ventures. But there are ventures that are what we call double-sided or two-sided ventures. A good example are companies like Uber, Grab, and Amazon and Alibaba, and those are middlemen type ventures in the sense that they bring together both a supply side and a demand side, and then they are able to facilitate transactions between both sides. So in those cases, when you in effect have two customers or users, and you need to have a value proposition for both sides. And when you do one-day validation, you need to identify contacts for both sides, and you also need to do the one-day validation for both sides. So that's an additional level of work for two-sided ventures. In one-sided ventures, you just have to interview and confirm with both the know-how and the know-who. When you have two-sided ventures, there's a third party that you will need to interview or contact. In addition, in effect, you have a know-how, which is the technology itself that will facilitate that transaction, and then you have both two sides. In effect, you have two know-who contacts instead of just one. When you do the one-day validation, it's also important to assess who you're talking to. In other words, your know-who. And that will help you qualify the kind of information that you get, as well as identify who else you might need to talk to get more detailed information. And in some cases, these are all the same person, but in bigger organizations, in some cases, especially in bigger organizations, these might be different persons. Typically, you will have the actual user of the technology, product, or service, and then there is somebody else that decides whether or not that user will receive or that solution, and then there is somebody who facilitates the actual procurement of that service. So at the top you have the decision maker, and then the person in charge of procuring, looking at competing solutions and negotiating price. That's called the economic buyer. Within the organization, and these two individuals might talk to either recommenders or influencers who either have technical expertise to evaluate different technology solutions, and then make the case to the decision makers and the economic buyers. So when you do the one-day validation, please do try to identify which class of customer type your contact belongs to. Okay, so again, economic buyers who might be your CFOs or COOs, they're the ones typically in charge of the procurement. Decision makers might be the CEOs, directors, or managers. Okay, and then the end users could again be either the actual staff that's using it, or it might even be departmental managers who directly supervise those staff and are capable of making those assessments or decisions.